You're listening to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, alternative DVD commentaries. Hi, my name is Josh. Sitting with me is Justin. Say hello.
Hello.
We're back for part 2, Back to the Future. If you'd like to watch the movie with us, it's going to be 17 seconds into the movie, so go ahead and set that up on your Blu-ray or DVD, what have you. We're going to go after the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, unpause. Steven Spielberg presents.
Oh, did he?
You know, we did Back to the Future in our time a couple of weeks ago, so I hadn't really thought we would do the sequels. I think I made a joke like we would do it in a couple of years, but I thought it would be a good idea to just do them sequentially, since I had such a great time with... I think we had a pretty good time with the first one, so why not just go in order trilogy. And do the trilogy, something we haven't done before. So we're starting off, it starts off with a recap, which is something that I kind of usually forget about, that it doesn't jump right into when Doc just takes them to the future. We have to recap it, and then we got Elizabeth Shue in here.
They had to reshoot all of this. They couldn't just steal the footage from the first movie. They had to completely, not just redo it, but try to precisely replicate it.
That's right. They did a pretty good job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen side-by-sides.
He's noticeably a little older.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
Same stunt double. Well,
it's the same shot, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But everything else other than that one shot is completely redone because Elizabeth Shue is in it, who replaced
We're talking
Claudia
about the
Wells.
shot Doc drives up to the to the driveway, and you can clearly see the stunt double inside. It's not him. He looks to be a much bigger man. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is important. This is the recapping of the very end of the first movie, which the funny thing is they never expected to make a sequel.
No.
When it said to be continued, that was simply a fun little wink.
It didn't say to be continued.
Yeah, it did.
I don't recall it saying that.
Well, I'm going to say it did. And maybe it didn't.
Should we wager on this? I don't think it said anything. It just went to black.
Whatever. The point is that they zipped off to clearly go on to another adventure. And the producers...
Something that we were never supposed to see.
Yeah. They just thought it would be a fun way to end the movie. Like, they're off to do something else.
Yeah.
And like we said in the commentary for the first one, had they known they were going to make a sequel, the producers very clearly said they would not have put Jennifer in the car because it created a complication that they had to deal with. And so this whole business, we're going to go save your kids and all that, it was just a joke. They didn't have any idea, you know. I want to say it said.
It did.
Maybe just the second one did, and that's why I'm
the
stuck
second
in my
one
brain.
Says to be concluded.
Okay, maybe that's why I've got it stuck on my head. So that was all redone, and now we're officially, and they added the Biff coming out, seeing the car. And now we're into the Star Trek 3 credits.
which
with Christopher
maybe
Lloyd.
one person out there listening will pick up on.
They're going through clouds.
Or you could call it the Fly the Navigator credits, which maybe two people will pick up on.
Yeah.
About these credits.
Yeah.
Compared to the last one, a little kind of weak sauce, don't you think? I mean, that we talked about how brilliant
the first
those
one, set up
opening
the whole
credits
movie.
were, and how we're getting clouds.
Yeah, I suppose. This going through the clouds doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. But I usually will skip past this part. But in the first movie, I let the credits go.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Although I do let this play because I enjoy the music. They're playing the full theme.
Yeah, I mean, I get they just flew off into the clouds,
but still, but not these clouds.
No,
and it doesn't look like that. So, I agree. Something of a missed opportunity. I mean, at least it blends and fades into them up here, but it's still. Yes, you're right. Compared to the first one, it doesn't mean anything, which is a little disappointing.
When I was younger, I don't recall there being very cognizant of two different Jennifers. Were you?
I wish I could say I knew one way or the other. I really don't remember.
I guess they made her look similar enough that...
I think when we were young, it didn't matter because she wasn't relevant to the story.
Yeah, I guess so.
Maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but it didn't mean shit to us either way.
Do you know why?
Why?
The original Jennifer didn't come back?
Yeah, she had a family issue. Like her mother got sick, something like that, and she had to be with her and help her, and she couldn't film and do all of that. I don't know what sort of actress she is. If she, like, I like Elizabeth Shue, and she's fine in this. She's totally underutilized, but that's not her fault. Or it's just they didn't want her in the movie as a character. They just had to deal with her. But I know she's totally likable and fun.
Oh yeah. I think Claudia Wells was a bit more like believable.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I love Elizabeth Shue, but I don't believe her and Marty together.
No, there's Claudia Wells. They worked a little bit better together.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, she feels older than him or something. I can't put my finger on it. It's just, but there's something.
I don't know. I guess because Claudia Wells set the tone.
Maybe she looked like, I suppose, an older high school person, whereas
I guess
she doesn't at all. And also this isn't her look. Like they're making her look like Claudia Wells' version of Jennifer.
Yeah,
so it never felt real. But
this movie gets you right in.
It throws you right.
You right into the plot very quickly. But when I was rewatching this a few nights ago, I found it to be a little uneven. It starts off very bright and fun. Kind of. I mean, there's still
this whole early 2015 sequence is fun.
Well, by fun, I mean there's still some considerable like violence involved for a movie like this. Anyway, I mean Biff is still a murderer or attempted murderer anyway, or Griff anyway. But at least he's not an attempted rapist in this one too. But once they go back to the alternate 1985, the tone shifts dramatically, and it becomes less enjoyable. It's still enjoyable, just less enjoyable. You don't agree?
I mean, this movie has 3 sections. It's the 2015 alternate 85 and then 55. And
as soon as they get back to 55, it brightens up a little bit.
It does. The tone changes again. I agree. Alternate 85 gets dark. I mean, it was supposed to, but it does kind of fly in contrast to not just the rest of this movie, but to the whole trilogy. It sticks out. Not to say it's bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just very different in tone.
Right. I am rich, though, right? Marty, please take off your shirt.
Well, I know I mentioned to you, since we're in this particular sequence, I want to try and stay on topic to this portion of the movie anyway. So this whole, you know what this sequence is? This is the Return of the Jedi opening scene on Tatooine, where they had to have that scene to get Han Solo back. So you had to have this opening 20, 30 minutes, and rather than just give it a throwaway line, "Oh, Han, we rescued you from Jabba," they decided to just make a whole opening act out of it. And this whole sequence of the movie, I feel like in some degree is a version of that, where they had Jennifer in the car. He came back and he said, "We got to save your kids." So they had to do this, but this isn't the movie they wanted to make. This part of it anyway.
So you think they kind of wrote themselves into a corner?
I think they wrote themselves into a corner, and
unintentionally.
Then they wrote themselves out of it. And this whole sequence was literally just based on 2 minutes of dialogue that they never expected to follow up with. So we have probably what amounts to 30 minutes of the movie
devoted to a storyline.
Devoted to a storyline that they didn't even...
Becomes irrelevant.
It becomes irrelevant.
Right.
You can tell that this is not the story they wanted to do, because to do this story for the whole movie, and we talked about this in the first commentary, would have been basically rehashing the first movie. Marty went back and inadvertently screwed up his parents, and now he's got to fix it. This movie could have very easily been the whole movie of Doc and Marty fixing Marty's kids, so it's like the same thing but different. And I know I had mentioned in that commentary that maybe that would have been a neat idea, but kind of the more I sit and let it ruminate, I realize no, that would have been the wrong way to go, because it is too much like the original. And this movie, even though it does revisit the first movie, is telling its own story. So at least it's doing that, you know. But this the first act of the movie is just them trying to get out of 2 minutes that they had written into the first movie.
But the future became a big selling point of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's the visual candy.
It was, now they go into the future, but the future is only the first act.
Yeah.
And after that, you never see it again. So it's a small portion of the movie. So you're kind of tricked, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Josh, let me ask you this before the rest of the scene takes forward. What are your thoughts as a whole on Back to the Future 2 compared to Back to the Future 1? Don't go into 3 yet, just this movie.
Well, I think I said in the last commentary that I do like this movie. I much would prefer to watch the first one. I think it's a stronger movie. I think most people agree it's a better, more tightly written movie. This movie is good. It's just not as good. I think I called it the lesser of the 3, and I still stand by that. I think I've pretty much always felt that way. There's people that will disagree with me, of course. Some people really love part 2. They like the time paradox that's going on with the sports almanac and having to go back and fix things, this alternate timeline. A lot of people think that's great, and I think it is. I don't think they executed it perfectly. I don't like the idea of, or at least I do like it, of Biff. I don't like how it's put out on screen. I like the idea of Biff and kind of changing history and giving the almanac to his former self, but I don't like to see Biff become this really, really disgusting, evil human being, when it seemed like in the first one, through changing history, he was kind of reformed. He became kind of like the doormat that George McFly was. Doormat's a bit of maybe the wrong word, but he just became, he was brought down a peg. He learned to stop being such a bully, and I like that. So to see him kind of have his character regressed, and now he's a horrible person again, but times 1,000. I was like, well, why would I want to see that? It's just it's not fun, and when you're a kid watching it's even harder to swallow. But there's a lot of great things in this movie. The future, people love the future. I mean, he's going into the Cafe 80s right now, and this was before the 80s were really nostalgic, before they were really fun to. It was 1989 when they made this, so they were still in the 80s, and but now the 80s are really fun to kind of look back on and celebrate now. Anyway, a few years from now, maybe it won't be anymore, but right now it is. So I say that this portion of the movie has gained strength, but the future is, for the most part, it's fun. It's bright. It's colorful. It's exciting. The hoverboard chase. I remember when I was a kid thinking that you'd be able to buy hoverboards at Toys R Us, because Robert Zemeckis fooled us all into thinking that they were actually going to be sold, and everyone was like, "Where are these hoverboards?" Robert Zemeckis said there would be hoverboards. Where are they? We were pissed off at Mattel. It was Mattel that was keeping it from us. But then we found out that, he was just joking.
It was all just BS.
But it's still a good movie. It's if I were to rate the Back to the Future movies on a scale of 1 to 5, I'd say the first one is a 5. I'd say the fourth one is maybe a 3.5 to 4, and this one's probably a 3. It's still enjoyable. Just I think it has some just a few problems that I don't think really help much. They still tell a coherent story, though. What about you?
For the whole thing?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I certainly agree with a lot of what you were saying, and I think this movie, well, like you said, it's a 3 out of 5, maybe even a 3.5 out of 5. It's a perfectly fun and entertaining movie, and it certainly has some great moments, but it does suffer from kind of like the the middle story. In this particular case, they knew they were making Back to the Future 3. So
it was done back to back.
Well,
right?
it was done back to back, and they talked about in the behind the scenes and whatnot, they had kind of written this whole big story that included the West.
Right.
And they said, oh, this is too much movie, and they cut it in half. And they kind of elaborated, on those parts and just made the whole third one a Western. And I think this movie suffers, and I hate to use that word, but I don't know what other word to use, but it's impacted by that fact. This movie was made knowing that there was a third one, which was a continuation and a completion to the whole story. So it didn't need to end. The first one, even though it leaves you on a quote unquote cliffhanger, the story was done. It ended. The third one starts with Marty going back to rescue Doc and the story ends. This doesn't. Like you pointed out at the beginning of the commentary, it starts off, just throws us in. And the very end of the movie leaves us on a cliffhanger. And so while certain elements of this story are independent and do, come to completion in a way, and again, I don't mean this in a bad way, but you can almost, if you think about it and break it down, realize, oh, I see, whole chunks of this movie were just filler. Like you feel like the meat of the story they came up with was the third one, was the Western, whereas this just had kind of chunks and sections that didn't necessarily need to be there, but they made it work. They made it part of the plot, and not to say that it was frivolous, but just like kind of goes on. Like, for example, this is just literally the first thing that pops in my head when they get to Marty's house in 2015. There's that whole sequence with his family, and Michael J. Fox is playing both versions of the kids, and it's like, does any of that actually mean anything to the plot? Not a whole lot. The only thing there that's actually relevant, honestly, is the nugget that they throw in that he's fired and that he's being called a chicken, which goes through to the third movie. Not like the first one, which everything, like you and I pointed out, is set up and pay off. This one sets up stuff that gets paid off in the third one. It's like you have to watch 2 and 3 together in a way, or just watch 3 on its own, and it's totally fun. Again, not to take anything away from this movie, because it is perfectly fun. But in my opinion, that's the weakness of the movie, is that I'm guessing if they had that whole script of what became 2 and 3 laid out in front of them, the events leading to going to the West were the shorter part of that script. You know what I mean? And so this had to be kind of padded out more. Like this whole sequence, for example, it's fun, but I mean, it's the first movie, and that's something you and I talked about before, that this sequence, while fun, is just a rehash of the first movie. And if it wasn't for the fact that it took place in 2015, if they had it take place in 85 or God forbid 55, you'd be like, you're literally doing the same thing. I mean, this is the same thing, but at least it looks visually different enough, to and he goes on water and all that stuff. So there's enough flavor to let it go. But, yeah, I think they were padding, honestly.
I think you're right. Unfortunately, the beginning sequence, although fun, it is a little repetitive. I wish they maybe had taken more of a risk and try to tell a really, really different kind of story. I mean, I think maybe you could argue that they tried. I can hear that
musical beat right there.
Dun, 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 dun.
Very familiar about all this.
It's a bit, it's sort of a repetitive story with the idea of a paradox. I didn't think it was, it's interesting. I just don't think it's, I don't think it was the best choice. I don't think they took much of a risk. Although the stuff with the hoverboard here, it's a lot of fun. But I think they just needed to take a bigger chance and do something that hadn't been done before in this kind of world, and my go-to is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and that is a sequel that is considerably different from the original. They took a chance. Instead of time traveling, they went to the afterlife. They met Station, and they met Death, and it's maybe some would say it's not as good, but I think it's just different. It's a different style. They took a chance and they made something different. This, I think they maybe didn't take enough of a chance. I would say they played it completely safe. But
well, I would say that the second act of the movie, which is the alternate 85, that is their attempt to kind of go different. Mm-hmm. And shoot, I wonder what.
But it's only one act of the movie.
No, I'm just thinking. No, I understand what you're saying completely, and I agree. You know, they weren't brave enough to be different enough because the first one was so successful. They were like, okay, we've got to keep it in that pattern, you know, that style or something. And not that I would have wanted to see this, but maybe an option to do what you're saying would be to have the whole movie take place in the alternate 85. You know what I mean? Like then it's completely different.
That would be fine, but the story they chose to tell.
Oh, I'm not saying it should have been that
where
one.
Biff is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's corrupt. He owns a casino, and he gives Lorraine breast implants.
I know, it's almost like three movies mashed together.
Yeah,
it really
it wasn't like kid fun.
No,
like the first one was fun, and it taught a valuable lesson too. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And if you stand up for yourself and believe in yourself, that's good. These are good things.
Yeah.
And here it's about, oh, well, Biff is just, you know, he's a horrible human being. You know, and he likes to cheat on horse races and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, okay. What kind of lesson is that teaching me? Don't cheat on gambling? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think the first one is the best. I mean, I say the best, but I honestly love the third one equally. But
equally with the first one,
you know, in a way, just because the third one is so much fun. They know these characters, and they're already friends, so you don't have to go through that getting to know you phase. And to see their characterizations flip, you know, where Doc is the impetuous one and Marty is the great Scott, you know, and all that's so much fun. This one, like we've said, has moments of fun. It's also very dark in places, and it's not as fun. So, yeah, it's a pickle. It's a pickle with this one. A buddy of mine, back in high school, he faked being sick, stayed home, and he decided to make it his goal to watch all three back to back. And he did that, and he said he actually started fading out in the second one. And when the third one came up, he got his energy
rejuvenated.
Back. He got rejuvenated. But the second one, and he kind of said a variation on what we're saying, where it's not that it's a bad movie or anything. It just kind of loses its steam. You know, the beginning, this stuff is fun. It's energetic. It's bright and all that. But then when you get to the nighttime scenes of oh, holy crap. Let me see if we see that shot again. That was
a shot of Griff.
Yeah.
Or Biff. Old Biff.
Yeah. It was the Star Car from The Last Starfighter.
Oh, I didn't even.
Yeah, I've seen this movie 100 times and I've never seen it.
I didn't notice.
I'll keep an eye out for it. But that was what's his name's Star Car. Not even Centauri. It wasn't even. Oh, it looks like it. That was it.
We also have a Last Starfighter commentary if anyone out there is interested. You can hear us talk all about the Star Car in that one.
And that was a Universal movie, so of course they just pulled it out of storage.
Pulled it out of mothballs.
Any Fucharo car they could get their hands on. Yeah. I was framed.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't have those floating cameras that they're using to photograph Biff or Griff. I keep getting the two mixed up. Yeah. Okay,
that is Griff.
That is Griff that got arrested. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just mentioning, you know, that they're about to segue into Nighttime 2015, which, you know, whenever I have sat down to watch this movie,
I feel something bad coming.
No. I kind of, if I want to go get some food or go to the bathroom, that's the scene I do it in. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, the pace.
It's the pace.
Slows down.
It slows the pace down, and I'm kind of taken out of it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a lot of that was just filler. Like, it didn't need to be there. Why did that whole scene exist? Other than the you're fired and the chicken stuff, which they did right here. You know? It was just added. In my opinion, that was that I feel that being added to it.
Maybe it goes back to what you were saying about setup and payoff, how the first one is loaded with setup and payoff.
That's what I'm saying.
But it all is self-contained, where this is setting up, paying off in the third one, where you're seeing a setup of not just, the facts, like you're fired, but showing how his life was in general, how unhappy he was, how his children had turned out, to show how it needs to be changed by the third one. It only really does get paid off with the whole chicken line and not hitting the Rolls Royce. So it's not much of a payoff.
Yeah.
I guess. So I guess that's why it feels kind of like filler.
How old is Doc actually right now?
That is such a huge mystery. I have no idea because...
Well, I mean, he's in part one. How old would you say he is?
In 55?
In 55. A minimum, let's say minimum of 40. He's clearly older than that.
He clearly is.
But let's just pretend he's 40.
The white hair makes him look older.
But there's no way he's 40. He's at least 50, right?
Because we're talking about 30 years.
That's right. So in this, he's got to be at least 80.
I know. It doesn't...
I know they gave him the facelift, change of blood, and all of that.
I guess it's just a conceit of the movie.
Yeah, you can't think about the fact that he is actually 80 years old.
Yeah.
Or more. Because he looks like he's 60-something in the first one.
Yeah.
He's got to be about 90.
Because I was thinking, is he like 90 years old by the time we get to 85?
Yeah, boy, it doesn't make sense. No. Maybe they should have darkened his hair in 55
Yeah, well,
or something.
You know what? I mean, we can't imagine him without this white hair now. But the white hair, it gives a very
crazy
eccentric Albert Einstein look. And that's what they were going for. So it works. And maybe he's just one of those people like Steve Martin, where his hair went white early.
Yeah, but he's still clearly wrinkled and all that. Like, he's at least 50. At least. He's got to be. I'm 42 and I don't look anything like that. And, so he's got to be at least 50. So he must be 80 at this point in his life. Running around.
I don't think we're supposed to think about it.
No, we're obviously not.
Mm-hmm. But clearly people do take this movie very seriously and think about those things. But I'm surprised.
Well, we're doing a commentary on
that has not come up more often. His age, definitely. So we're in Hilldale now. We're in the night sequence for Hilldale with the...
You know who the cop is, right?
Yeah, from Lethal Weapon and Monster Squad, where clearly she
or the mom in the Goonies.
Or the Goonies, where clearly she is related to Donner in some way.
I think she is Richard Donner's
sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law,
something
I believe.
Yeah. But she's good. She's
she's
character
fine.
actress.
She's character actress.
She would pop up here and there. I wish she would get a bigger role in these things, but she never did. It was always kind of a bit part.
Yeah.
They're tuned to the Scenery Channel, which is funny because we do have things like that nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to like Amazon Prime or Netflix, I think they have like the Scenery Channel, the Scenery stream on there, or like the bonfire thing you can go to.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
I watch it.
Yeah, but we don't have a Chapel O' Love though.
Chapel O' Love.
She did do that line well, but. Okay, we're inside Marty's house right now of the future, and we're about to see Michael J. Fox as a girl. And I don't think when I was really young, I don't think I realized that was Michael J. Fox in drag. I don't think I noticed. Of course, now you can't help but see it.
The weird thing is he actually makes kind of a cute girl in a weird way.
Should I clip this part out of the commentary that you just said that?
No, man. I mean, it's weird. It's weird. It's strange how that works. I mean, it's just as odd to say Mrs. Incredible is kind of hot. I mean, she's a cartoon, but go figure. It's how it is. Well, you know what? Do you want to talk about this whole Crispin Glover thing?
Yeah, why not? Crispin Glover. Well, no, not Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover's double just came into the shot.
Yeah, because
he hurt his back on the golf course. But he did didn't show up for this one. Apparently, there's some stories that he pissed off Gale and Zemeckis, but I've heard from him that it wasn't really like that. That they just they didn't agree on some things, but they didn't have a falling out, so to speak. And I've also heard that he wanted more money, or he wanted the same amount of money as Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, I've heard.
I don't know if that's true either. I think he's denied that. I think he's said he just wasn't happy with where the story was going. I think he was very adamant on that, and he's a very serious actor. And I'm willing to bet it's probably a combination of a lot of those things.
Yeah, and to some degree, I think you're probably right. But bottom line, he was not brought back for part 2 and part 3, and because the character of George, they wanted him alive and well, essentially in 2015. They came up with the idea of having him hang upside down and had someone who could mimic his voice. So his character was there, and you, as the audience, just weren't supposed to notice.
It sounds just like him.
It sounds exactly like him.
And
you weren't supposed to notice that wasn't Crispin Glover. And they actually did steal the shot from the first one, where he's with Lorraine looking out at...
Which got them in trouble.
That got them in trouble, and so did this, because they're still using his likeness.
Face, because they used the prosthetic.
They used the prosthetic and then made that
the mold.
Of his face. So it still very much looked like him. And
it turned into a landmark case of
where you could not use an actor's likeness without their permission. And he was right. Of course, that didn't do him any favors as far as getting in like on the third movie or something.
I wonder if that could have been avoided if simply they had asked, like, "Hey, I know we don't agree, but can we use your face in a few shots?
We'll throw you a couple bucks.
Like you're still in the story, but I know you don't want to be in it." Yeah, maybe it could have all been avoided.
Maybe, but ultimately, some bad blood there, and it kind of became the stuff of.
Well, speaking of this scene here, we're in the dinner scene inside Marty's home, and the disc has some cut scenes from here. So this was initially even longer, and you said, it's kind of filler, so imagine it was even longer before.
It really is. I mean, all the stuff with the pizza, retract, and all that, it's...
Fruit,
it's
please.
Fun. I enjoy it.
It's funny.
It's fun to see Michael J. Fox tear it up like this, but it doesn't do anything.
I'm always distracted when he's watching TV, like that image of the woman with the breasts, like the top right corner. Like, what is that?
Dad's home.
Lord of the manor, king of the castle. Yeah, lithium mode on. What is lithium mode? I don't know, but I want to find out.
TV for a change.
Well, it did predict like the shape of TVs, though.
Well, movie screens were 16 by 9 back then.
Well, it looks more like a TV screen, though, not like a projector.
It does. It looks like a 16 by 9 screen. You're right.
But the way it's kind of their TVs hanging there, it's kind of reminiscent of a plasma screen or an LCD or
you're quite
what have you, or LED, whatever you want to call it.
I think also this second movie is made so much different from part 1 and part 3, because part 1 and part 3, they go there and they stay there. That's it. There's no causality. There's no loops or anything like that. There's no what do you call it when you alter time? Paradoxes. That's all in this movie. The paradoxes outside of the fact, well, if his parents don't get together, you don't exist. Or in the third one, there's not even a paradox issue there. They just need to get back. This one is infinitely more complex, and you have to really think, if Biff did that, then what does that mean for this, and what is it? It's not in a bad way. It's not that it's bad. It's just a lot more convoluted in its plotting. If you had to say what would general audiences as a whole, how would they rank the movies? Would it be the first one, third one, and then this one, or do you think people put this higher than you and I do?
I think for the most part, people seem to put it higher. I think there's this consensus that most of the movie takes place in the future when in fact it doesn't.
No.
And it's much more bright and fun than it really actually is. I think they put aside the darker elements.
Yeah.
But I think that people seem to just think of it all as one entity, all three movies.
Well, yeah.
Whereas I guess those are younger people, where they had them all to consume at once, where we didn't. We had to wait for them to come out.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But I think they hold part 2 up a little higher than we do. I think primarily because of the future scenes of the hovering DeLorean, of the hoverboards, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that takes place in the future. I think they find to be, and maybe some people really find the whole going back to the first movie really interesting.
Well, I do. I just, like you and I talked about in the commentary in the first one, it just shouldn't have been in the second movie where you were literally just there.
You make a good point on that. If this was a 5-part series and they went back to the first one in part 5,
yeah,
maybe that could be
that
fun.
would have been fun.
But yeah, they were just there, and it's like we're in reruns already.
Exactly.
We just did this.
Exactly.
Can't you come up with something new?
I mean, that's at least why
you guys are pretty
alternate
creative.
85 is cool,
Yeah.
but it's also dark and it's not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Biff is scary, for lack of a better word.
He's scarier. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's an asshole in 55, and he's a jerk in 85, an unalternate 85.
Well,
but
in 55 he is. I mean, in 55 he was already a rapist in the first one. But
yeah,
I guess the way the story's told, it's not made. You don't put too much of a fine point on it.
Yeah.
But in the 55 they go back to in this movie, where Biff is like obsessed with Lorraine all of a sudden. What's the matter with you, Lorraine?
Someday you're gonna be my wife.
Girl. It's like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Yeah,
It's I thought he just liked her because she was a girl.
she was the pretty one.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, but now he wants her to be his wife. It's like, okay, interesting. All right, why'd you turn him more evil? Like, turn it down a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And much as I do enjoy hearing his grandma, you'll bag, and all that.
Well, when you're coming back,
As much as I enjoy hearing that,
you want this ball? You want this ball?
Go
get it. See, that's the kind of stuff I can take. Biff doing,
but maybe just gosh, I can't tell you how many times we've hit on this with certain characters. It's best not to know. And maybe we should never know what Biff's home life is like. Mm-hmm. You don't want to know that he's this sad, lonely kid because his grandma raised him and can't connect with him. God damn it. Don't tell me that. Don't make me in any way sympathetic to Biff. Like, you can't excuse the fact that he's an attempted murderer, an attempted rapist. He's an asshole. Just let him be an unforgiving asshole. And I think that that part of this movie in 50, when they go back to 55, kind of teeters on that dangerous area where you almost feel bad for him. Almost. Just a little.
I don't think I ever remember feeling sympathy for him.
Not in some sort of overt way. Just
other than the fact that they keep throwing shit on him, literally, which is horrible. As we're watching the movie, Biff just came back from the future, from the past, excuse me, into the future. So he's reset time. And I'm not talking about that question about if we'd see changes right now.
I'm surprised they left this in there.
Him dying?
Or just something wrong. Why didn't they just let him leave the frame?
Yeah, why did they show that?
Yeah, because they don't follow up with it. Why on earth would an editor have left that in?
It's an interesting choice. I don't know why.
Yeah,
for some reason, they must have felt that they needed to cut away. But in the first movie, we get the exposition of Doc explaining to Marty how time travel works while in the parking lot of the Twin Pines Mall, right? It's like, okay, so you do this, you enter the time, you go 88, boom. So Marty is learning how to do it without really realizing that he's going to have to do it himself.
Right.
Biff never gets that information. He doesn't know how the DeLorean works,
That's a very
but
good point.
he makes it work, even though it doesn't seemingly seem complicated. How did he know he was supposed to go really fast? He may have just hovered there and think, how am I supposed to time travel? Did he just gun it and it worked?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
So we're back in time to the present, 85, and clearly things are... You think they would look around and see already that things are not right? It looks like a hell zone right now.
Well, I mean, he notices, I don't remember bars here,
Well,
but the whole
everything
place looks like a dump.
It does. It looks like, Detroit on a really bad day. And Hill Valley didn't initially look like that. It's a war zone, basically.
How long do you think she's gonna be out?
I'm not quite sure. She received quite a shock.
But at least the swing is still there.
Yeah.
Put her on something. Even in the time change, the swing is still there.
Don't worry, she'll be fine.
Now, when I was rewatching this, I was thinking that this movie actually does violate some of its.
How so?
Well, we're gonna have to pay attention to that as it unfolds. But as I was watching it, I recall feeling like it wasn't exactly following its rules. It was breaking its rules somehow. It just didn't seem to add up.
I'm trying to.
As we go along, I think we'll have to pay attention to that. But I remember having a bit of a problem with it.
You just kind of brought back to my memory. Didn't we at one point sit down and figure out from start to the first movie to the very end of the third one, from Marty's perspective, how long is he on this? Because this whole journey for Marty never stops.
Right. So he's in
55 for how long?
a couple days,
Okay.
and he's in.
Let's pick a number. Let's say 4 days or a week.
I'll say let's split it. 4. I was going to say a couple of days. You say a week. I'll say 4. So we're in the middle.
All right.
And I think that he's.
Well,
doing
he
this
just spent the whole day in 55, and he's back in 85 at nighttime.
2015.
That's what I meant. So let's say that's 5 days. Then they're gonna go to alternate 85 at night. Still, he leaves that night. He doesn't stay there very long. So let's say that adds up for the rest of the day. So we're still in 5 days, and then he goes to 55 for. When do they get? Do they get there at night or
They get
day?
there at night, and then they go into to daytime, and then that pretty much lasts just all day because that's.
Is it all just the one day, the night of the dance?
It's the night before they go back in time initially in the first movie. So they go back to the 11th. I think they arrive, or maybe the early morning hours of November the 12th. So he's only there for a day.
Okay, so 6 days. And then he's in the Old West for 2 or 3?
I'd say probably 3 days. 'Cause
Well,
he arrives.
we know for sure that there's a time stamp on it
he does arrive, I think, just a few days before
before Doc
Doc
gets
is
shot.
supposed to be killed.
So like 3 days maybe? So for Marty, this whole adventure takes place in about 7 to 8 days.
Sure,
Roughly.
Sure. Why not?
Roughly. That's when you think about it, it's kind of crazy.
And it's kind of a convenient plot point, in the first movie where he has to save Doc from getting shot. He goes back only 10 minutes before.
Right.
If Marty had done that for the third one, he would have been screwed, right? If he had arrived 10 minutes before Doc was supposed to be shot, because he wouldn't have been able to go back and he wouldn't have been able to do anything, really. Right?
Probably not.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's convenient that he went back days ahead of time this time, right?
Well, I think... Yeah, why did he go back days?
I don't know if
Was
there
that
was
just maybe he learned his lesson? Like, maybe 10 minutes is not a good idea. Maybe I should go back.
I don't think it's ever addressed.
No, I don't think it is. But I mean, if you assign logic to it, he's learned from his mistake in the first one. Okay, give yourself plenty of time. Mm-hmm. So there's no rush. I mean, he even says, we got no rush, Doc. Put some gas in here. He's not looking to run, but of course they have a problem anyway. He led slackers.
I think in the deleted scenes, this is where he was supposed to run into his brother.
Yeah.
And that was the only scene his brother... Hey, it's Red! Mm-hmm. He made it into this one.
Red!
But his brother doesn't.
No.
His brother was an alcoholic,
He was a bum,
like
too.
Red, so...
And I'm really glad they cut that out. It was really bad.
It was a bad scene.
It was bad acting on Mark McClure's part. It was just bad.
I don't think it was his fault. I think that was just what they wanted him to do, I guess.
I don't think he was a caliber of actor to pull that off, unfortunately.
Okay.
I mean, I hate to knock him, but...
Fair enough.
So this is a redress of the center of town. His casino is the clock tower. I don't think you're supposed to notice necessarily, but...
So he just demolished the clock tower. And there's a tank in the middle of town. That's things have gone down really
Yeah,
far.
I guess he would have demolished the clock tower and put it right here. But I mean, as a matter of actual physical sets, I just think they redecorated it, and all that. This is in the town square.
Considering how much money Biff would be able to make from betting on all these things.
Oh, he wouldn't live in Hill Valley.
Well, but it just shows you what kind of a small thinker he is. Like
he wants to build a castle in his small
He
hometown,
does.
like that movie
Envy.
Envy.
Yeah. He just builds the mansion right next
in
door.
this hick town, in this like cul-de-sac.
Yeah, that's good. But he has a wax figure of himself outside of his
People have
casino.
said that he was kind of modeled on Trump, in a way.
Maybe so. Sure. Trump Tower, yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we're watching the how Biff became what he is, how he created Biffco and all that jazz. And it's kind of a neat way of doing it. To show people how he became the great man he is, he has this little TV setup set outside his casino. So it's just convenient. So Marty can learn how he became what he is. Which isn't that bad. It kind of works.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's like
it
it's a
totally
little
tells
Biff
the
Tannen
story.
museum, so it tells the story. It's kind of nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
I like the even though it's gross, I love the way he kisses her. He
Oh, yeah.
he shoves his tongue down her throat.
Well,
That's great. Because we were talking about how funny Tom Wilson is.
He's super funny.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was with you or with a friend of mine, but we were talking about how out of the whole trilogy, he plays the most characters. Marty plays Marty, old Marty, and then his two kids, so that's 4, right?
Okay.
Doc plays Doc and old Doc. Oh no, I'm sorry. Marty does play the Western guy, Seamus.
Yeah.
He does play that. But Thomas Wilson plays 55 Biff, 55 Biff, 85 Biff, the alternate 85 Biff, then the other alternate 85 Biff, because you have Jerk Biff, the get me your work so I can turn it in Monday. Then you have the fixed Biff where, no, I'm sorry. I only gave it second coat. It's the second coat now. Then you have this alternate 85 Biff. So that's 4 Biffs right there.
Yeah.
Then you have Griff. Then
Mad Dog.
I feel like I'm missing someone.
Old Biff in 2015? Did you say old Biff in
No, I
2015?
did not. So there's old. No, yeah. Did I? I can't remember. But whatever. He plays so many
variations.
And he does them all
different,
fantastically. Yeah. And he is incredibly menacing as Biff, especially this version of Biff. Mm-hmm. But yet he can play the other 85 Biff where he's like, oh no, I'm sorry, this is the second coat now, and you totally buy it.
Yeah.
And
well, it's his physicality too. Like he kind of hunches over.
Yeah.
He kind of shuffles around a little aimlessly, but here he's standing up straight, and he just has an arrogant look on his face. So he's good with his body too, which is part of.
Well, like you said,
acting.
that we were talking about him and like wondering when they came to write the scripts for 2 and 3, did they choose to write Biff in so many variations because they realized, having filmed with Thomas Wilson, they're like, oh my God, this guy's a gold mine. Like
they wanted to put him in more.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to give him everything because he steals every goddamn scene he's in every one of the movies. Every time Biff, Griff, Mad Dog, any of them are on screen, he's hilarious and he steals the show. He's either hilarious because he's meant to be, because he's goofy, or because he's just a dumb punk. Although even like this, like you and I have done this. I do it with a buddy of mine at work. When he thinks he killed Marty, he does that.
Suicidally nice and neat.
He can't help but
Butthead.
come off exactly like that. It's just he's totally got this down. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he owns it. He really rides the line with this version of Biff to where sometimes he's dumb and other times he's straight up scary type.
I think menacing is the
menacing.
the right
Good
word.
word.
because he's such a like his stature is so big, like comparatively to like
He's
Michael
a
J.
big guy.
Fox.
Yeah.
So it's great that he can play as someone who's kind of a doormat, and then play someone like this who's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
See all this stuff with Lorraine being like she's an alcoholic now, and
Yeah.
she has these obvious fake boobs. It just God, it just feels kind of dirty, and there's something.
It does.
It feels like I'm on the set of a porno or something. There's something.
It does. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't like it. Like
I like the stuff with him when he's in the office with old Biff. 85. When they're having the conversation and all that, and he, Dick, Biff, duck, whatever, and he throws the thing at him and all that.
Oh yeah, when he's telling him
when
how
it's
he got
just the two of them,
almanac.
I like it. But yeah, this with his mom, you're right. It feels dirty, and I don't want to see this.
And we were kids.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it just.
I totally get it. You're right. Oak Park Cemetery. No, I agree. I agree completely.
And he was written out of the story.
And that's it.
He was originally in the story, George McFly.
I would assume he was.
But now he's just a headstone now.
Oh God, no!
Oh Jesus, God, no!
Please, God, no!
I hope he didn't have to, really channel his own life, because he said his dad had died.
Oh,
In
yeah,
reality,
you're
like
right.
Michael J. Fox's dad had just passed away. Probably was in his mind when he was doing that scene.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about how Biff. He's not a good person. Like 55 Biff. Attempted murderer, attempted rapist. I mean, the movie plays it all off goofily, but I mean, he's a pretty dark character. And when you realize that left unencumbered, he follows through. He does kill George. He's a murderer. A
and I
successful
don't
murderer.
like that about the story.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's why I think why you and I disconnect from this, at least this section of the movie, because it goes somewhere that just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I'm like, no matter what you do, buried deep in Biff's DNA, he is just a piece of shit.
Yeah,
and there was no way to redeem it. That's just who he is. Like, if you dig deep enough, you'll reveal the same thing every single time. There's no,
which
there's
is
nothing
sad
virtuous
because you
about
see
him.
him sort of. Granted, it's just for a minute in the end of the first one. Not that he's redeemed or that, but he had the
did try to
stuffings
rape his
kicked out
wife.
of him. But oh no, I know. But I mean, he had the stuffings kicked out of him, and it looks like he was humbled for it.
I bring that up because I never thought of it that way in our previous commentary.
Yeah.
You had said that he hires a man who had once tried to rape his wife, and I'm
And
like,
actually
you're
did
absolutely right.
sexually assault her.
I was
Yes.
like, I never thought of it that way before, but he did.
As they come pulling
Why would
in
you want to
from-
keep him around?
They come pulling in from playing tennis, and oh look, it's Biff, the man who, he did dirty things to me
Always
in the
trying to get
car.
away with something.
Yeah, come on.
But if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have got together if he hadn't tried to rape you.
Yeah, no.
See, here right now we're in Doc's laboratory or his shed, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And he's showing us how alternate realities can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this was pretty new for the time, right? In movies, to show different
Well, I mean,
realities.
I don't know how new it was, but it was definitely. It was well done. It was.
Well, they did it very simply with that
They did.
chalkboard
They made it
diagram.
very simple to understand.
skewed into this tangent.
Exactly.
And that makes it very easy to understand very quickly. They could have done it with just dialogue, but not.
No,
it wouldn't
this
have worked
was-
as well without this little chalkboard diagram.
Yeah, this is fantastically concise and easy to understand. Back then we were the Von Brauns.
That was from part
That's
three.
part three?
Yeah, that's part three. Our father changed our name after the First World War. You're getting two exposition scenes caught up.
Well, there you go. This whole movie is like set up for the third one. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Even Robert Zemeckis, you and I were just catching snippets of the behind the scenes, and knowing that the future part takes about 1/3 of the movie, he openly said that's my least favorite part of the whole thing because
I guess I missed it when he said this.
Okay. I thought you caught it.
No.
He was talking about how when movies do the future, it's ultimately just someone's opinion on what it could be, and he doesn't find that particularly interesting. So for him, this is paraphrasing what he said. He said, I find the future stuff in this particular movie it's not my favorite part, is what he said. And you're like, well, shit. So he wanted to get through
So
this.
even the director
he
was
wanted to
yeah,
get to the West.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's where they wanted to go. But they had to do all this to set it up.
Yeah, I guess it's easier to romanticize the past.
Sure.
Not the future.
Right, exactly.
But the future is something that people more...
Because you
want to
can
see.
make it anything you want,
Yeah, and people like to see what a vision of a future would be.
Mm-hmm.
So makes it inherently more interesting for some people.
Yeah.
Get back to our reality. We have to find
Now,
I think the pace really has
it's dwindled here.
dwindled into a point where it's like almost to a halt until we go back to 55.
Mm-hmm. Well, now this whole scene here, I like this.
It's when we get out of the night, literally out of the dark.
Yeah.
And we go to 55 in the daytime. It's bright and sunny.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's right after Doc has said something inconspicuous, and we
Something
see him
inconspicuous.
pop into screen, and it's like, oh, we're back into something a little bit more light now.
Exactly.
Set up here with Clint Eastwood.
But like I said, it's set up for the next movie.
For the next movie, yeah.
Yeah,
watching this in 1989, you would think, okay, this is
You
going
don't
to come
think
back
anything
later.
of it.
Yeah. You see, he's got two hookers in his hot tub,
Yeah.
and it's just, it's the whole thing is it's tacky. You know what I mean? It looks tacky because his taste is, but it just it gives this ugliness to everything.
I agree. Yeah, the whole sequence in Alternate 85, with the exception of this office scene, I don't particularly care for.
Start talking, kid. What else you know about
And they really look like hookers or low-level porn stars, and so it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Doesn't help. Although Michael J. Fox did look pretty money in that shot with the water reflecting off of him.
Oh, yeah. He totally sold it.
Yeah.
He just oozes confidence. Like, he's not intimidated by Biff,
Well, he's never been intimidated by Biff.
Yeah, I mean, he recognizes that Biff does pose a physical threat, but he's willing to stand his ground, so he doesn't.
Well, you see that in the first movie. He picked a fight with him
Yeah.
in the cafeteria, and when it's shot in a way where Tom Wilson looks like twice the size of him, and he's still willing to get into a fight. He's not going to back down.
No. Thought you crashed into a manure truck
My father told me about it.
your father?
before he died.
Oh, that becomes a running gag. I mean, the manure truck happens at the end of this movie, and then it's the same owner. Yeah, D Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the third one, it's not D Jones, it's somebody else. It's like A Jones.
Something.
It's like-
It's a running thing.
Yeah, the Jones family has been in the manure business for quite a long time. That's quite a great legacy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, pays the bills, I guess. Nobody else wants to do it.
Hey, sure, someone's got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a safe within a safe. He's not playing around with
That's a
that.
good point.
This book will tell me the outcome of every sport.
Oh, yeah, this is something I was thinking of about time changing, about maybe breaking its rules. He has the almanac here as he's showing Marty the almanac, and on the front of the almanac, you'll see it shows 1950 to 2000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's all the figures in there are fixed figures. But as he's making these bets, right, isn't he causing ripples in time? So wouldn't that affect later scores? Maybe not every one, but it might, right?
It might. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and I would agree. It might. He would have to do this in such a way where his winnings and all of that are completely removed from the events.
I don't
But
think
the way
Biff would be smart enough to know that.
They weren't. The way they showed that, he's at the horse races. Yeah. It's a lot. People would then.
I can understand if that was his first bet.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't think to be
But
very
he's way too
incognito.
public.
Yeah. But I don't think Biff is smart enough to realize it, to think about ripples in time.
No, you're right. Eventually,
like that.
some of that stuff would start to be altered. He would have to probably bet horse races here, bet on a baseball game here, he'd have to keep those things so separate so they don't interfere with each other too much, Because if you have a big win on this pony, then, on the next race, someone might bet more for that guy, and then someone else would win, and everything, like you said,
it would
it's
change
ripples.
things.
You got to play it safe. Do those bets in a inconspicuous way, so it doesn't change anything. You still get the money, but it's not super.
You can make the bet quietly and still make money, but still, it's gonna alter people's lives
unless you do underground betting or but you're right, it's gonna alter lives. It's hard to say, man. Like winning the lotto might be a better bet, but then someone else would have won,
Right.
So it's like, how do you do it?
Mm-hmm. Again, I think it's something we're not supposed to think about.
No, probably
No.
Suicide'll be nice and neat.
What if I don't?
Suicide'll be nice and neat.
What about the police, Bill?
So he killed George McFly. He admits to murdering George McFly.
Yeah,
For what reason? Like just so he could get Lorraine?
I think so. Yeah,
See, this is just.
because he already had Lorraine.
He was an attempted murderer. Now he actually is one. It's like.
he in cold-blooded.
Yeah,
killed.
it's just.
Yeah.
No, it's too much.
Cold blood.
It's too much.
So McFlies.
Like, do you remember? Like, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about playing Johnny Be Good, and
How
if you
does Doc
put your
know
mind
to
to
be
it,
here?
he doesn't. It's just he doesn't.
Wait, here it is.
Butthead. There we go. Oh, it's idiot, not butthead.
Cool moment.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like this movie has some great moments to it. I love the ending of this. When Doc gets zipped back, and he gets the letter from the past.
Well, that's a great
That's
scene.
friggin' great.
Yeah.
And you can only have that by way of setting it up a certain way. And I love it. So it's a series of great moments. He brought Vegas to Hill Valley, is what he did.
Yeah. See, by this point, I'm like, okay, can we get out of this? Can we get out of this alternate 85? It's depressing.
Yeah, and like here we are almost at exactly the 2/3 mark. This is ending. They're going into 55 now.
Yeah, because Marty says like, oh, what, we're going back right now? I'm like, yeah, please go back right now. I want to get out of here. Like this is bad news. This whole portion of the movie.
Doc, we're not going back now. Yep. Doc, what about Jennifer? What about Einstein? We can't just leave him here.
Do you really think seeing all that stuff from a different angle in the first movie is really all that interesting? Like, take it out of the fact that we just saw this in the previous movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the idea of seeing it from a different angle is really all that interesting?
We must succeed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose we should be careful not to overstate that element of it, because they're going to spend the next 30, 40 minutes here in, oh look, now it's got the ice thing. I thought they didn't always do that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's interesting.
I could swear in earlier parts of the movie it didn't.
Yeah.
But okay.
Well, they came back in the rain in part 2.
And it was
Well, we're still in part
steaming,
2. Sorry, 2015.
Well,
so.
yeah. So maybe it did. Oh well, I have to go back.
Could
and
we
look.
have been wrong?
No. I
We
refuse
don't
to
make
admit
mistakes.
that. What was I saying?
Grab the almanac any way that you can. Remember.
So okay, in the next 40 minutes or so, they are going to get themselves involved in some of the events from the first movie. But I would say it's probably half and half. Half of it is kind of like you're not seeing it through the eyes of the first movie, and the other half you are. Like when Marty and Doc are in the garage, and then Marty's being chased by Biff on the street. All that stuff is its own thing. But then obviously Marty goes to the school dance, and we start seeing some of the same events. Doc helps Doc on the street. So maybe there's not as much of it as we're thinking. You know what I mean? I mean, they're in
I
the
think
same
there
time
is.
frame that it's.
But
all
then there's the
happening,
whole
of
stuff
course.
at the dance where we see him playing Johnny Be Good from.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, at the dance at the school, up there. But outside of that, what other part of the first movie does he actually intersect with?
Are you including everything that happened at the dance, including seeing him and Lorraine in the parking lot?
No, yeah, I'm saying that's all the dance.
Okay.
is that's really the only part of the movie, like the night of the dance.
Yeah.
The rest of this is its own thing.
Well, yeah.
So all I'm saying is there's not as much of that as we're kind of selling it to be. Yes, they're back in the same time frame and Marty's there, but we don't really see that until the night of the dance stuff. Like, he doesn't see himself until he's singing Johnny Be Good, right?
Well, yeah. But
So
still,
I mean,
it's a lot when you get there, though.
yes, when you get there, yes, it is a lot. Oh, fair
Yeah.
enough. Go get it.
Doc, it is Biff's house. I'm on him. Over.
Yes.
Yeah, like this part is what you were talking about, where he has this like obsession with Lorraine.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize they're trying to justify his actions in alternate 85. Why would he go to such lengths, for this one woman,
I got to cut you off for a moment. We're at the scene right here. He's getting the bill for the
Yeah.
manure. That actor
Yeah.
on the right,
Yeah.
the mechanic, is the guy from 2015.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was the
And you
same
know
guy.
who he is in real life, right?
I guess I did. He's familiar.
He's the voice of Roger Rabbit,
Oh,
which is why he's in this.
Okay. Oh, when I said actor, he's the guy pitching the clock tower, right? It's something. He's asking for donations in 2015.
He's the guy, put some money on the cubbies.
put some money on the cubbies. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no idea that was the same guy.
Yeah. So it's the same character, literally. Just older.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is. Oh, there was a cut scene. There was a cut scene with those two. Yeah, with both of them in prosthetics.
Was there?
Yeah, with
I don't
Biff and
remember.
that guy. Yeah, they were talking smack to each other.
It's like, you've been an asshole since 55.
Something like that.
Something like
Yeah.
that, yeah. He really does look like a 50s kid. Like, they made that work.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone can date. You know what I mean?
No, you're right.
Like, he looks like
Well,
he belongs there.
so does
Yeah. No,
Leah
she
Thompson.
does too. Yeah.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Not every actor can feel like they belong in the time. In that
Oh, you're
period
right.
of
You're
time.
right. Yeah, you're right.
I figured I'd cut you a break and give you the honor of going with the best looking guy in school.
Yeah, well, I'm.
And the screen door on a battleship line is funny. Not as good as Make Like a Tree and Leave. Yeah, I guess they felt they had to do another line. Then that's the best one they could come up with.
See, there's another variation of copying the first one.
Again,
You know.
Yeah. See here, he just grabs her. Like, oh man. See this shot? It's horrible.
You're my girl.
He's like.
Like, yeah.
Like, let's make him look like more of a rapist than he
And they do this like Pratt hitting, over the head stuff.
a
You're like,
box on the head, and it's like, okay, would that really knock him
Yeah.
over? No. Someday you'll be my wife. It's like, when did this?
I know.
Like,
It's
I can believe him wanting to
He's
have
supposed
sex
to be
with her.
17.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
marry her. Like, where did that come from all of a sudden?
Exactly.
I can help make it happen.
Oh yeah, who are you, Miss Lonely Hearts? Just get in the car, butthead.
He does a pretty good job interacting with himself.
Oh yeah.
Now that-
It's a testament to his acting ability.
Yeah.
Just get in the car, Tannen.
Like old Biff is still Biff, but he's tamed by time, and all that.
He's worn down by time.
But he
He's a
doesn't-
little more relaxed.
But he's still aggressive enough to
Yeah.
he can kick his old self, his younger self's ass. Like shut
Yeah.
up, kid.
Yeah.
He doesn't take any shit.
This cost me $300.
And don't forget, this is the bumbling Biff that says, I just put on my second coat now. He's full of shit. He like you said, he was always an asshole. So when he's washing George McFly's car, it's all an act. He didn't get the stuffings beat out of him and was made right. He really was always Biff, because this is that guy. The second he had an opportunity, he took it. I mean, now granted, it took him another 30 years from seeing the car in 85 to then 2015 and putting it together. But the second he had a chance to be old Biff again, he took it,
Yeah, I don't like it.
That's what it is.
No,
though.
I'm shaking my head here, which doesn't register without video. But yeah, I don't like it. I like the idea of Biff being reformed a little bit.
But he's not, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole idea of it being an act just doesn't
Well,
sit
it had
right
to
with
be.
me.
to a degree anyway.
Bet you $1 million UCLA wins at 19-17.
What are you, deaf? Old man, he just said it was over.
Well, you took a pretty deep breath there. You got
Well, I
nothing-
wasn't-
nothing to follow it up
Griff.
with. Yeah.
Griff is Biff's kid, correct?
It's his grandson.
How is it his grandson?
Gramps! He calls him
you're
Gramps. Yeah.
But why is it that...
He's the same age as Marty's kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would make sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
Grandson.
mixing the generations of Marty and his
Yeah.
dad. Yeah, that's what I was doing. You're right. So who in their universe was... I want to know who came between Biff and Griff. What version of asshole was that middle guy? Because we don't meet him.
Yeah. That means, yeah, Biff had a kid who had Griff. So where's that one?
That's what I'm saying. You know, there's a whole generation of asshole that we're missing.
Yeah, we did miss. Yeah, we did miss one. Maybe that's just one Thomas F. Wilson prosthetic job too many.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate to say it, but it's hard to pick things back up after we've been through
Alternate 85.
Alternate 85. It's really hard to get back into the swing of things because the plot just really loses steam, and then to try to pick it up about the alternate reality, the almanac, it just is inherently just is not as interesting. It's just,
And that's all they're here to do.
Yeah.
Is get that almanac back.
Yeah.
You know, this a whole 30 minutes of the movie is literally dedicated to just get that book back. You know, how? I mean,
well, when you think about it, I mean, what is the first one? It's all about just trying to get Lorraine to go out to with George.
yeah, but that's more
that was-
complicated. You're trying to influence personalities and you're trying to make two people fall in love. That's infinitely more complicated than literally stealing a book. You know?
But they didn't say that. They weren't trying to say, let's make them fall in love. All Marty was trying to do was take Lorraine to the dance. That's all he was trying to do.
But in order to get there, certain things had to happen, and he knew that. He had to build up confidence. He had to do all these things. This is really just one act.
Those were side effects. Here, they're
Yes.
just saying, we just need to get that almanac. That's all we need.
Yeah, but that's all this is. It's all just a chase for the almanac. And I think that's another reason why it's moving. It's not that it's not moving, that it's dead. It's just like there's not enough. You know, the action pieces and what's happening are entertaining, but when you your brain knows there's really just this one thing that's actually happening, you know. In the first one, you have all these extra things that start happening as a result of, yes, Marty needing to get them to the dance. You know, his mom's falling for him. He's got to build George's confidence. One or two other things, whatever. You know, the machine, the car doesn't work. You know, all these little things that all add up. Whereas this, it's just, okay, Marty's in the car, and now this happens, and then this happens. You know, it's just a series of things that happen. The tightness of the first one, writing wise, is lost in this.
Right now, we're at the scene where the present Doc goes back to the 1955 Doc, and he ends up helping him. Grabs the 3/4 wrench or whatever it is, and I think they should have not used this scene because they're 55 Doc clearly looks at himself, and you think he would probably notice that it's
He
him.
doesn't really look at him. He kind of like...
I don't know. It's like they're standing side by side, and he glances over. I'm like, you telling me you wouldn't see his doppelganger right next to him?
I know he would, but I mean,
That's why I
literally
think
in the
they shouldn't
movie-
have. That's why I think they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, it's too much.
And having just watched the first one, where I brought up, where you see.
Here we
that-
go. Here, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
What?
this whole bit. This is maybe 2 minutes of screen time. It doesn't mean anything. It's fluff.
Yeah, because all he does is just
Yeah, it's just
It
a
just
thing
helps
for
him.
them to interact. You know,
Yeah.
it's for the audience to enjoy. It
nothing
doesn't-
about the plot.
nothing.
No.
You know.
No.
And I
See,
dare
wouldn't
say
he
the
be
third
causing
one-
ripples in time right now? I mean, he gave him the different wrench. We needed Doc to make that mistake and get the other wrench, didn't we?
Like here, he's being real ballsy. I mean, he all he
See,
has to
look,
do
they're
is
right
turn
next
his
to
head.
each other. You telling me he wouldn't notice?
Well, your voice is familiar, or you know.
Be one hell of a storm. Well, thanks.
I mean, all that's separating them is that, look, he looked right over at him. He looked right at him. Like, that's a little too much.
This just wasn't necessary from a writing perspective.
No. I mean, it's fun to have the two actors run into each other.
Yeah.
To do versions of himself. But yeah, we were, since we just did the first one, where I mentioned that there was that extra in the background that looked like
Yeah.
Doc just did just now.
Yeah.
Looking at this, I was thinking that maybe Galen Zemeckis intentionally dressed Doc in that way. The way that extra was dressed.
Oh, yeah.
For that reason.
Oh, I totally think.
I just thought it
They're
was
like,
a
hey,
co-
we have an opportunity here. We could totally make him be that.
Yeah, I just thought it was a coincidence, but I was thinking maybe they did on purpose. Yeah.
For this one.
Yeah, for this one,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I totally think they
It's like,
did.
oh yeah, we can connect it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That was totally on purpose.
See, but now we're at the dance, and it's like, oh, it's the dance again.
Yeah. So, yeah, see, look, I'm right. It's about halfway into, this third act that he's now intersecting directly with the first movie. And, whether it was the right choice or not,
Well, it makes
who
it
knows?
feel less special.
It does. It does. It takes away from the identity of the second movie. Even if we don't like everything, at least it was its own movie,
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, see,
I mean, I do
we can
like
see
that
that Biff spiked the punch.
Yeah,
see?
I mean,
it's like, oh,
Ooh la
okay,
la,
that's
ooh la
interesting.
la. I mean, I'm in,
Yeah.
this stuff is fun. We are seeing some other things.
You know what I don't like though?
What?
We're not at the moment yet, but screw it. That moment when Marty breaks into Strickland's office to get the ooh la la, or to get the almanac, what turns out to be the ooh la la. We see Strickland actually start swigging booze.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't care for that. I thought that was completely out of character for someone that's big on discipline.
That's a rule guy.
Yeah, I would think why
Yeah.
he's supposed to be what's the word? I'm looking- chaperoning this dance, and he's boozing it up. I was like, that was a bad choice. Bad choice. I mean, and they wrote these together with 3 in that scene where the
Discipline. Son.
yeah, discipline, son, discipline, yeah, and then he's boozing it up. I'm
No,
like,
you're right. You're right.
bad choice.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I get in 55, men did drink,
Well, yeah, I mean, no one's debating that's a thing.
but still, I'm like,
no, I totally understand.
that's
what
not.
you're saying.
I didn't feel like that was the right choice for Strickland.
Yeah,
You agree? Thankfully,
I do.
Okay. I'm surprised you remembered because I had completely forgotten he was
No,
drinking.
Of course, I remember. I mean, we've seen this movie many a times. Maybe they should have. I don't know. I mean, the only way I think to address a lot of these issues that you and I have with this movie would be not just little touch-ups here and there. It would require like it to be a
Full-on
different
rewrite?
movie. Yeah.
Well, the initial pitch was they go back to the 60s, right? That's what they wanted to do, and it's about hippies.
What was it?
I think so. I don't know how much traction that idea got, how far they got in the script stage, but I think that's what it was. But I think they were kind of rehashing that.
Maybe they should have made Strickland his dad.
Biff's dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess he got, everything from his mother then. Maybe that's why they don't get along.
You're a punk just like your mother. Get out of my face. Yeah.
But I think with them being like hippies or whatnot, flower children, it would have been they were in the rehash mode where he has to save his parents again, kind of a thing.
Oh gosh, thank God they didn't do that.
And this moment here where Marty is crawling underneath the car so he's not seen by his other self, totally unnecessary. He just made himself more visible by doing that.
Yeah, he could have just walked by.
He just walked by and like turned his head. Yeah, it's like that was
right.
done just for us.
No, you're right. And that's what a lot of this sequence is kind of about. It's just for us.
I had noticed that Strickland's sign says discipline. Did you notice that?
No.
It said SS Strickland, discipline. It didn't say
no.
like vice principal.
Oh, okay.
He's the discipline officer. Like,
Nice.
that's great. Finish that thought.
Well, I wonder if it would have been, I mean, without like rewriting the whole movie, but let's say just looking at this third act in 55 again, maybe if they had more of it be on its own and just have like one or two shots where it intersects with the first movie, you know, like him ducking under the car, even though it's unnecessary. It's just a little wink, wink. Hey, guess where we are, you know, but then have it just be in its own thing. But they would need to set it there so that he could run into Doc again to set up, because I perfectly love the ending, you know, where Doc gets zipped back and he's in 50 and Marty's stuck in 55. So he has to go to 55 Doc again. I don't mind that.
I don't mind that at all either.
I know. So
No.
like maybe just tweak this part of it so it still ends the way we like, but has less reliance on the first movie. You know, this event of the first movie.
Yeah, but I think our commentary is kind of taking kind of like a negative approach.
Yeah,
because
I know. I'm not trying to bash it.
We're dumping on it a lot, and
I know.
I'm not saying that the movie isn't enjoyable, but since we just watched the first one,
Yeah.
which is just inherently almost perfect, we call it a perfect movie.
It's about as perfect as you can get.
When you come to this right after, it's not. It's completely different, and it doesn't work as well. But that's not to say that it's bad. It's not.
No, it's not bad.
That's
at
like
all.
people say Ghostbusters 2 is bad when it's not. I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
But when you compare it directly to the first one, when you line them up and try to compare their value,
Look, this shot where that's happening in the background, I don't mind that. I just don't want him interacting with it like he does
yeah.
when he goes into the
Well, what shot are we looking at?
this we're looking at Marty's in Strickland's office, while in the background the altercation with Biff and his dad is happening at the car. I don't mind that. I think they're focusing too much on it. Like it should literally be on the side more. But he's not interacting with the moment. It's just happening in the background. I'm okay with that. What I don't like is that when he goes onto the stage, he's actually dropping stuff on the goons that prevent them from attacking Marty on the stage. Like it's too direct.
That's another moment that I figured would cause ripples, because Marty drops sandbags on the goons.
Yeah.
Right. Then when the original 55
Which would imply
Marty,
that they always did get him, because they're waiting for him. And they know he's going to have to come off the stage. So that means those goons were always there waiting for him.
always.
Well, if you think about it, because according to the rules of their movie, right, an event doesn't get changed until you change it and then go back to the present. So that means in how do I explain it? The 80, okay, when Marty returns to 85 in the first movie,
Yes.
that means those goons would have attacked him on the stage, because the events
No.
of part 2 hadn't happened where he
No.
went back and did it.
I don't think
According
so.
to the rules of their time travel.
I don't think so.
How so? It was always that way?
No.
But then the events of the first movie never happened.
Wait a minute. The only reason those goons chased him onto the stage in the first place was because of the events of part 2, because they were chasing after this Marty.
All right. Okay. You're right.
That's the only reason
You're
they
right.
ended up
No,
there.
you're right. They wouldn't have been there.
No,
Okay, fair
they
enough.
weren't.
My bad.
Okay,
My bad.
so
My bad.
the initial point I was getting
Yeah,
to
right here. Yeah,
right?
you're right.
So the initial point I was getting to was that when Marty exits, the 1955 Marty that's on stage playing Johnny Be Good, when he exits, he runs into those goons covered in the sandbags, and he stops
And he
looks at them, not wondering, like, what are they doing there?
Right.
Of course, any normal human being would stop and say, "Are you guys okay? What's going on? Like, do you need help?"
He knows what they're there for.
I don't think he even knew who they were. Like,
he
they
knows they're Biff's goons, doesn't he?
were covered with sandbags. He didn't know who
Yeah,
they were.
well, I
He
guess.
would have stopped and said,
He
"You
just
guys
walks
need
by.
help?" He just
Yeah.
stops and he's like, "Okay." That
Well,
would
like you said, this is just one of those moments. You're not
causes
supposed
ripples.
to-
It would have slowed time down. He wouldn't have made it to the thing on time. It would change. I'm saying it would change.
Yeah.
It would change the way the events played out originally. This movie is just nothing but lies, Justin. Nothing but lies. And you see how it's making that moment where George kisses Lorraine
Empty.
And when it had so much power
Then they shouldn't have shown
the
that
first
moment.
time,
They should have
when
done
we hear
something
Earth
else.
Angel building
Yeah.
up, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what, that was so beautiful. And then now it's just kind of like, oh, and now
They
it's
should have
just
had him
the
run in
background.
here at this point once that moment had passed, so that moment is still sacred.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Totally.
Well, even the moment of him playing Johnny Be Good.
It's taken.
Yeah, it's secondary now.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But it's still the more interesting thing happening.
precisely, which
Yeah.
is why having a little bit and seeing someone in the background, an event we saw from the first movie, that's one thing. But to have him literally interacting with it is a bit anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a major paradox.
Wait, a paradox? You mean one of those things that can destroy the universe?
And the actor they chose to fill in.
Yeah, he
for
does
it,
not look good though.
He's much more svelte, I think. Don't you think? He
He's,
just doesn't.
he's built very differently.
Yeah, it's close, but just not close enough.
I agree.
Who is this actor who says wallet? I think he took his wallet. Who is this guy? We know him from something else.
Oh shoot, I don't know, man. Tons of things, really. Yeah, he's one of those characters.
He's got a distinctive look
Yeah.
and voice.
Yeah, we shouldn't have been in here.
You think we just should have heard it in the back? Like,
Yeah.
The sound.
He's walking
hear
by
him, hear
the
him play Johnny Be
cafeteria or the
Good.
gym, and we hear it.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
oh, there he is. He's playing it in there.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
Don't put him in the room.
Yeah.
Just like him in Strickland's office, seeing the event of the car in the background, or when he
I would have
was
been happier with that if it was like out of focus.
Sure.
In the background,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
was
exactly.
it was
But
clearly
they
in focus.
intentionally want
They
you
did
to
like a
see it.
double thing. Yeah.
Or like when he's trying to spy on Biff and he catches him and Lorraine driving in, and like what's going to happen after that. That's cool. I like that. Mm-hmm. But to do this it's just too obvious. And like you said, it takes away, and it's more interesting than what's actually happening. Exactly, like you said. It's cool, like in its own way, but there's a cheapness to it, unfortunately. But it's still awesome that they got everyone.
They got the band members
there,
back.
yeah, and like everyone looks exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they tried to like get some of the. Well, there's no way they could get the same background actors, could they?
Probably not. I mean,
No.
I suppose if they really wanted to, but I don't.
Well,
think
they were all. Don't you think they probably got people who were dancers?
Who knows?
So
But,
they probably kept them, with their names written down somewhere. or something like
they
that.
would have had them on casting sheets and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But less important, obviously, than those really on camera.
See, look at the sandbags completely cover up their faces.
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're right.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But you kids are gonna.
something I wanted to ask you, because Marty just finished playing his Johnny Be Good song, right? When he starts riffing, when he starts going off and doing his own guitar solo, is he doing a riff on Johnny Be Good or Power of Love, or is it just something he's making up on the spot?
To me, he's just riffing.
It's just having fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is why the band can't follow him. They're like, what?
Well, I think because he's playing like so different from.
Well, they held on for Johnny Be Good, and
Yeah.
like he told them, this is a blues.
well, that
riff
style of
that because what he was doing was something that musicians understand. When he tells them this is a blues riff in B, they know what that means. Watch
Yeah.
me for the changes and try and keep up.
yeah.
And they do because they know what that is. But he goes off book completely and just starts making it up. Yeah, and then he loses them. Like this is fine. Where, like you said, it's out of focus. It's in the background. That's kind of a cute thing. Now, if you keep doing it, it loses its charm. If it just happened once or twice, then it's a cool wink, wink.
Well, since we brought attention to this moment where
I dig this part coming up when he gets hit by the door.
we hit by the door?
And you see his eyes blinking because he knows that door's coming.
he blinks before the door.
Oh,
hits him?
watch it. Yeah, because it's set so that door won't hit him, but he knows that door's coming. So watch him.
Oh, okay. Okay, so
Watch his eyes. Watch his eyes. He's twitching. Boom.
yeah, you might be right.
And Robert Zemeckis, he had a great story about that door. That Michael J. Fox told the story about, saying because that door really comes out and like even cracks him in the head a bit on that when they cut and it really impacts him.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no way to, because Zemeckis wanted it as close as humanly possible. And he was like, dude, that door's going to hit me in the face. And he's like, hey, don't be a weenie. Just take a little bit. You know, we'll set it, but you might get a little tap.
It's really motivating when the director just says, don't be a weenie.
But what he said was, he said, hey, Mike, pain is temporary, film is forever. And he was like, shit, you got me. And
that's like saying the show must go on.
Well, yeah, so he's basically like, yeah, take it, man. Take it in the face and
take one for the team,
Take
man.
one for the team and be a man. And Michael J. Fox, like you can tell as he's talking about it, that these are formative years for him. That was a life lesson.
Yeah.
Where, you know, yeah, it's going to suck, but it's for the best. So, you know, it's kind of like...
So the door really did hit him in the face.
Well, it sure as hell looked like it got him. You know, I don't think it meant, like, they certainly said it so it wouldn't, but like he said, I want that thing to, you know, you got to sell it. If you want to sell it, it's going to hit you, you know.
So what do we do?
I have a plan.
I love how he'd rip through us like we're tinfoil. I love that. But see, like, this stuff is kind of cool because it's not connected to the first movie. It's off on its own thing again. I like this.
I mean, we kind of do get into ridiculous territory here where it's like, how oblivious is Biff that he wouldn't notice these things?
Well, of course, that's something totally different.
Yeah.
But to me, this is more enjoyable than the dance stuff because it's its own thing.
Well, the fact that we're in the climax.
Well, yeah.
It is kind of
A weak climax.
A weak climax, isn't it?
Like, this is it.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
It doesn't really
go anywhere.
Have a big climax.
There's no big bang or anything.
No,
like
there
that.
isn't.
No, there's
You know.
nothing. Like part 3 ends with the shootout and the train.
The train and this literally
yeah.
he just ran from some goons and he gets away from Biff. And
Now he
chasing him.
just
That's it.
is on the hoverboard outside his car to get the sports almanac. It's a
you're
little
right. You're right. It is a
yeah.
very thin.
It's pretty weak sauce.
It is
in comparison.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, the first one, you got the whole timing of the clock tower, the lightning bolt.
Oh yeah, this doesn't
going
remotely
88.
compare to that. The third
No.
one absolutely does. Of course, the third one that's just a redo of the first thing if you think about it, but it's still fun, and it's removed enough to where you don't really think of it as the first one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it's still the same concept.
You think like Biff would just ask, like, wait a minute, how are you floating there right now? Like, how are you doing this? He doesn't ever seem to.
At the moment, I don't think.
I
he's
guess not.
concerned
In the
with
heat
that.
of the moment, he wouldn't ask. Why
And
are you
here he
outside
is
my car like
again,
that?
willing to commit murder. He's going to run him into the side of that wall. He knows
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he's doing.
Do you actually remember the first time you saw this movie?
In theater?
Yes.
Or... Yes, I do.
You do.
I do.
Okay.
I remember the theater does not exist anymore,
Okay.
but yes, I do. I remember.
It's
I
interesting.
distinctly remember it. In fact, because I remember I sat on a shitty seat that was broken.
Oh yeah, like, when you get a bad
There's
seat.
one of those sense memories where it had a. It was screwed up.
You're like, oh, it's gonna screw up my whole enjoyment
And I
of this
remember
movie.
seeing it with a buddy of mine, and
Wait a minute,
yeah,
that's not what I remember.
what do you remember? You were 4 years younger. How would you know?
Well, I remember the day very, very well because I didn't get to go. Like
Well, then wouldn't I remember?
Well, that's why I'm wondering why you're remembering it wrong. Like,
How am I remembering it wrong?
well, I remember this came out in '89, so I know how old I was. But I wanted to go, but I had the flu,
okay.
and Dad stayed home with me. Mom took you and our other brother to go see it, and I was, of course, upset because I didn't get to go.
Oh man, you know what? I'm thinking of part 3. Part 3 is where I saw it with the crappy seat. I was mixing them up. You're right. We did see this in the summer of '89, the same summer that Ghostbusters 2 came out. Because I remember our mother saying that she preferred Ghostbusters 2 to this. I do remember that very distinctly now.
Okay.
Because us as kids,
Yeah.
we were more into this than we were into Ghostbusters 2 because this had the future scenes and all that. That's what sold us.
I don't remember that part, but
I do. But I remember us being surprised that Mom preferred Ghostbusters over
I remember
this.
Mom hating this.
Well, there you go.
And I saw part 3 with Mom in the theater, and she said, well, thank God it was better than the last one.
Okay.
Because, Mom and I guess you weren't there. Maybe you were. Our other brother was there, but she,
For the third one?
yeah.
No,
in
that one I saw with my friend.
in that same
alone.
theater that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
But what I brought it up for was like, what was your initial reaction to it? Because you were a bit older than I was at the time. So, how did you feel about it?
Seeing
About
it in the
part
theater?
2, like what was your initial impression of it?
I mean, man,
Because
it
here
was-
we're looking back,
It
however
was
many years.
89. I was in like 6th grade.
Well, you were much more cognizant than I was. So, what was your impression? Were you in love with it? Did you think it was awesome? Like, or were you just like, oh, it
I
was okay?
certainly loved the 2015 stuff.
Okay.
I remember when, it came out on video, that's the stuff we rewatched. This stuff we probably petered out on a bit because it's not going to hold a kid's interest as much. The alternate 85 stuff would not have, to this day, we still don't even want to watch it, so we certainly watched it, but I think it was more for the first act than anything else. But as a kid at the time, honestly, I can't remember. I remember liking it, just like I like it now. But beyond that, I couldn't say.
Right now, I would say for me, it kind of stands as a movie that's it's enjoyable in pieces, not as a full feature length movie. It's a little harder to watch the whole thing in one sitting. Like the first movie, I can watch and enjoy the story. This one, it's fun to just pop in and watch a sequence here or there, to watch the hoverboards or to watch some of the alternate 85 stuff, or even here when they're revisiting the past, even though I don't really like it. But part 3 rebounds and tells a story, a fuller story, where you're a little more invested in Doc's character. Completely different angle this time, with a character that you actually like, as opposed to Biff, who's this horrible human being.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose you're right. Thankfully, there are enough scenes to where it's a good movie. Like you said, we're not trying to talk trash about the movie. It's a good movie. It's just unfortunately when it's bookended by 2 movies that are generally light and fun, and this one goes so dark, it kind of, it's not what I wanted it to be. I would have preferred it to be more fun, and light. Which is not to say there weren't serious elements in 1 and 3, because there were, but they weren't dwelled on in the way they were in this one. Love that. Just love that.
So Doc just went back to 1885, excuse me.
Yeah, 1885. And this, God, I just love this ending. It's a total cliffhanger, but I love this bit that, he's standing out there in rain and he's lost. What's he going to do? There is no more time machine. He's gone.
Yeah. How does it? Well, I think he's more concerned about his friend.
Well, sure.
Right now.
But also in moments, this mysterious guy comes out with a letter written.
Yeah.
What would it be?
1885.
1885.
It was that 70 years?
Like 70 years in the past. And it's for him, and it's set up. It's worded just the right way. It tells you everything you need to know to still have the emotional reveal that it's from the Doc. You're like, yes, this is great.
Yeah.
I want to go now.
Yeah. See, that's one of the fun things about time travel that you can do in a movie. Where
You can do
fun.
something
It's
like
fun.
that. Yeah.
Like, oh, the guy that was just there wrote that letter already. It's already
And like
here.
literally Doc just left, and within a minute,
Yeah.
Doc's message is here. It's
because
great.
it makes your mind start to wonder, like, oh man, he's gone and lived this whole life in 1885.
Exactly.
And this letter's been sitting there for 70 years, waiting for this moment. That's so cool.
It is.
Yeah.
It's still cool.
Yeah.
Western Union.
And it'll always remind me of Quantum Leap. They do kind of the same thing in Quantum Leap. For those Quantum Leap fans out there, they do this in an episode of Quantum Leap.
Yeah, where he mails the letter.
He mails the letter, then instantly...
As soon as he mails out, drops it in the box, the door opens.
Well, because he and Al have that conversation. Who's going to hold a letter for 100 years? Oh,
Post office.
the post office will. Which indeed they do.
Yeah, that's great.
If you give them instructions to deliver, they'll do it.
You know what? God damn it. We should write a letter to ourselves. And
To our future selves?
And say, deliver it to our parents' house, who they should still be there, in 10 years, and ask for someone answering to the name of Justin. Just so one day we can be sitting there doing Christmas dinner going, holy shit.
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. 70 years.
Yeah.
It was given to us with the explicit instructions that it be delivered to a young man with
Your description answering to the name of Marty.
At this precise location, at this precise minute. Yeah.
November 12th, 1955. We had a little bet going as to whether this Marty would actually be here. Looks like I lost.
Did you say 70 years?
Where else do we know this actor from?
Oh gosh, it's Joe something. The dude's been in like 100.
I know he has. I can't key
off
on.
the top of my head. Yeah, I can't do it either. You know, maybe if they had gone back to 55 and literally not done any interaction with the first movie except for the moment that's about to come, where it ends just with Doc, yay, and then Marty, dun dun, and you're like, what? Maybe it should have saved it. As like,
oh, you mean don't do any of the let's run into the bits from the first movie?
Yeah, maybe if they had been in 55, we know that,
but just
that
doing
it's
something
happening,
else. Okay.
But save it for this moment.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would have been much better.
And then this would have been the big reveal.
September 1885.
I know where he is. Dun, dun, dun,
Well, because that would be fun because the moment right after Marty left, we don't know what happened to Doc, so that is new to us.
Well, yeah.
So that's kind of cool. It's
You
literally
could
the
still
moment
have all
after
these
he left.
events happen in 55. Just don't run into the first movie at all, Or just have that one winky moment with something in the background to remind you, hey, these events are happening. So when it comes to this is the big climax. And this works. At this moment, I'm charged,
Yeah.
The music hits right, and it picks up at just the right part.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, but it's the end of the first movie, so it's a little.
But we've already had our climax to
Yeah.
the second one. So this is just the denouement,
Yeah, but they're replaying footage, so it's
No. I know.
It's fun, but it's already playing on nostalgia for a movie that isn't that old.
But maybe you wouldn't feel that way about this if they hadn't thrown in so much of the first one.
oh, probably not as strongly. No, of course not.
Or show slightly less of it,
I think less of it, but coming in on that music beat
It works.
and him sliding
beautifully.
down the cable works. So
Because that's all Doc's moment,
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
And here you think you're watching the first one. I love it.
Yeah. Because this is where the same shot where he runs in. So
Yeah.
they just recreated it. Yeah.
Doc? What?
Okay, relax, Doc. It's me, it's Marty.
No, it can't be. Just sent you back to the future.
Oh, I know you did send me back to the future, but
Well, we joked in the first commentary, the commentary for the first one, that Doc really has no idea what happens to Marty after he sends him out of 55 to go back to 85.
Oh, like if
Because
he-
Doc's memory ends in 85 when he knows that Marty goes back. He doesn't know that Marty returns safely. He really
Right.
has no idea. Like we had said, maybe he just got zapped
Zapped.
into oblivion.
He got blown up. Yeah.
He doesn't know. So when he sees Marty come around, his first thought would have been like, holy shit, it didn't work,
You know what? The movie just ended,
Yeah.
but we still have this tag
Yeah.
on the end, which I'm surprised they kept.
They had it in the theaters.
I remember that,
Yeah.
but why they kept this for the Blu-ray release, I really don't know.
I think because it was part of the movie. I mean, it didn't play at the end of the credits in the movie theater. It played just like this.
Yeah, but
And-
we're well past that now, so why continue to do it? Why not just go to
I
credits?
see what you're saying, but I think they were just preserving the spirit in which it was originally made. If you were part of the team making the Blu-ray or the VHSs, would you say, guys, let's cut that tag out and just go straight to be continued and go to credits?
I would,
Yeah.
because it was, back in 1989, when it hadn't come out yet, Part 3 was still 6 months away, or a year away.
Yeah.
I don't know when it was, how far apart they were. But showing a little trailer, yeah, that's fine. But after, many years passed, why continue to have it there when we've all seen it already?
Oh, Joe Flaherty. That was
Joe
his name.
Flaherty. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Well, credits are rolling. Do you want to throw in some final thoughts? Oh, wait. You always go first, and then I end up saying the same thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Going,
you go
well,
first.
you're right.
You're right. You go first.
Should we reverse it?
Yeah, reverse.
Okay. So let's see. Shoot, now that I say that, I feel like I really said it all, which is that this movie, let me preface, I enjoy this movie. I've watched it more than once. I enjoy Back to the Future 2. I do. However, it is a flawed movie. I feel like it's a movie split into 3 acts, which I don't think they make any attempt to hide. That's pretty much what it is. The first act was meant to deal with 2 minutes of throwaway dialogue from the first movie. The second act was their attempt to do something very different, show us how time travel can go badly, and it gets very dark. And you and I have said more than once during this commentary, it's uncomfortable. We don't even like to watch it for the most part. And then the third act is just not rehashing the first one, but reliving the first one. And it's like, did any of this really need to happen? And so much of the movie, in my opinion, is filler in some form or variation. And whereas the third one is its own movie. It's its own story. No reliance on the first movie. Whereas this one has to pick up the pieces from the first movie at the beginning, has to relive the first movie in the last act, and then the middle does something that most people don't even like anyway. So I hate to say this because this does sound ultimately very, very critical, which I know we've been, but I feel like this movie, the whole second movie, should have basically taken a completely different form. And pick one of these 3 movies that are mashed together and just do one of them. And either it would have worked great or not at all, but commit to one of them. You know, make it more, let us live in one of these worlds long enough to care about something, because that doesn't happen. We don't live in either of these time frames long enough to really get into it. You know, we live in 55 with Marty in the first one. We get into the characters, good and bad. This, we don't really have a chance to do that. And I think that is one of many elements about this that I find instinctually wrong. You know, it should have either taken place all in 2015 or all in alternate 85 or all in 55 and just do their own thing and then have it slowly intersect, which that would not have been my preference at all, except for the fact that I love how it ended. You know, maybe have it all take place. You know what? This is what I would do. To keep the spirit of what they were doing, have 85% of the movie take place in 2015. Come up with a whole thing going on with saving his kids and trying to right the wrongs and so on. Whatever, make it all up. Who cares? And then skip all the alternate 85 stuff completely. And then have it end with them realizing that the only way they can fix something, because something's changed, all this, and let's say it changes in front of their eyes. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go. The point being is that they realize that towards the end of the movie, within the last act, that they have to shoot back to 55 to get the almanac that Biff took. And then we can end up in the same spot here and have it end the same way, which I loved. But cut out alternate 85. Just get rid of it. And live it out in 2015. Come up with your own story, because it can't just be saving the kids. Have it become more complicated. You know what? The first one, you and I talked about this. I'm pretty sure. Or I saw it in a video, and then I talked about it with you. I'm not sure. But it was something that until it was said, I never noticed. These movies are not about Marty at all. He's the observer.
I've seen the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first movie is about George. The second movie is about Biff. The third movie is about Doc. Marty's an observer in the whole thing. Maybe they could have made the second one, the events in 2015.
He's a surrogate for us.
Right.
In a way.
But maybe they could have changed that in the second one and made the second one be more about Marty seeing through his children his own weaknesses, his own folly as a person that he then passed on to his children, and he's seeing his children suffer a fate that he himself may have done, because we could still see Marty be not successful because he made mistakes, he was impulsive, and then his kids are doing the same thing. So it could have been him saving his children, which is kind of like an opposite of the first movie, but it's about him learning something, not about him teaching yes, he teaches kids something, but in doing so, he teaches himself. Or in a weird way, they're teaching him something, which he becomes George. Like, that would have been interesting. Make the events different. No one's falling in love with anyone. None of that, like the first movie, but have it be a similar theme, just totally different events. Then give us the end where they have to zip back to 55. We have a cool few minutes, seeing that stuff, and then Doc gets zipped back. Fine. Do that. Hell, you could even skip going to 55 and have Doc get zipped back from 2015 and still have the letter moment. He could still be out, in the woods or something in 2015. You don't have to go to 1955 at all. And it could still end the same way. I think, for me, that would have left a stronger movie compared to 1 and 3. Off the top of my head. That's what I got. So, coming around, it's a good movie. I do enjoy it. I've rewatched it, but it's flawed for many reasons. And I do think ultimately it should have been a different movie than what it was.
Well, when I watched it a few nights ago, I found myself getting a little tired of it. About in the points where we pointed out, like when it's got into the darker aspects of the alternate 85, and I found it to be not as enjoyable, and I got a little kind of antsy, and I just kind of wanted to get to the brighter, more fun stuff. But now that I'm thinking about it, when you mentioned 2015, that when you said, stay in 2015 and we'll work on his kids, I don't think that would have worked. I like the idea. I don't know if that would have worked, though.
It would have been entirely dependent on a very good story that felt different.
I don't think staying in the future would have been the way to go. No. I think it would have kind of... I don't think it would have been
a gimmick?
No, I don't mean gimmick. I don't think it would have been... because the first movie, we're dealing with the past, where everything they do in the past is going to reflect in the future, where here, if we're staying in the future, everything they do has no ladder effects that we're going to be aware of. So it doesn't work in the same way. I'm not saying they could make it interesting, but it doesn't really provide for... I like what you said about Marty learning, because this movie doesn't really provide him the growth that the first movie provides, where he learns to put his mind to it and where he gets to play on stage, where in the beginning of the movie he did not. But here in part 2, they start the thread of he doesn't like to be called a chicken, which kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's too overt.
It's really
comical.
It's funny, but you could tell they just threw it in there.
It's like slapstick obvious.
And it's like, I don't remember Marty having that short of a fuse like that, and where he just doesn't like to be called the chicken or
to the
yellow,
point where it will ruin his life.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit silly. So he eventually learns in part 3, like, to not let it get to him, but doesn't. It's not a very big payoff, not really.
No,
I thought that the payoff in part 1 really worked. It was cathartic. He played his heart out on stage. Where here in part 3, where we're paid off, not in part 2, with the movie we just watched, in part 3, where he just says, Mad Dog Tannen, he's an asshole. I don't care what he says. I don't care what anybody else says.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you've learned something, Marty. But that's a whole movie away. So,
right.
But it's a character flaw that I never really felt was
natural.
It was just kind of thrown in there.
Yeah.
And where the events of part 2, as opposed to part 1, which I felt was two creative people coming together and writing something from their heart, to have fun. They wanted to create a very cohesive time travel story with this very nugget of an idea where you go back to see what your parents would be like before they had you. Where now they're in the place where, now we have to actually follow up that and create this whole story of time travel. doesn't feel like they were having as much fun because they already had fun. Now
Right.
that's like, now we're obligated to create this story, and they still did it well. But I think even they couldn't live up to the expectations they had set. Like, they had told their story. It was a self-contained story. They knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So considering the corner they kind of wrote themselves into, I think they did okay.
Oh, sure, they did okay.
They did okay. But I think the pitch that you just gave me,
Yeah.
it sounds interesting. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see what this different version would be. I think we're both onto something when we said like it would be okay if we just saw maybe snippets of the first movie. It's out of focus in the background, or we hear it, not where we're actually interacting with it.
Yeah. Too soon, guys. Too soon.
Much too soon. But that's just all just talking on my butt right now. So it doesn't matter. This is the movie we got, and it's okay. It is okay. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
All right. If you guys have made it this far, thanks for listening. I'm Josh. Good night.
I'm Justin. Good night.